I spent the last 10 years of my life listening to every financial YouTuber, watching every financial podcast, and listening to basically every financial content creator out there. And I listen to all the professionals tell us what we're supposed to be doing. In today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly what worked and what didn't because I followed all the rules that everyone told me to follow. And now, 10, actually 12 years later, I have the results on what worked and what didn't. And I'm just going to give you guys those results. And fortunately, my results aren't unique to me. I followed these rules, and these rules are proportional in the most part. So because they're proportional, I can actually tell you what worked and what didn't, where I would have spent more time, effort, and money, and where I wouldn't have spent as much time and effort and money. And most importantly, I'm going to tell you what stressed me out more and what I shouldn't have done because it was too stressful. And if you guys need some validations, your feelings are valid. It's 2026. It costs a heck of a lot of money to live. I feel so poor. I'm sure you feel pretty dang poor, no matter how much you make. And it gives me anxiety. And I'm not a super anxious type of person. So in this video, we're going to get a little juicy because we're talking about my finances and we're talking about what I would change. And you guys are just getting the cheat code for I've kind of spent the last 12 years doing this, so you should just take my results and apply it to your own life. I'm not selling you anything. We're just getting nitty gritty and I'm exposing some of my own personal stuff. You guys can do me one favor in payback for the amount of stuff I'm going to expose about myself. You can just hit the subscribe button. It just tells me that you guys actually like these videos and it says, okay, on top of my day job, I should make videos like this. Not that I need that validation, but it would mean a lot to me. If you could just, actually, if you could press the like button and the subscribe button, you'd literally make my day. Thanks, and let's dive into the video. So what are some of the things that people have been telling us to do? Financial content creators, let's say. What have they been telling us to do? They've been telling us to pay off debt, avoid high interest rate debt, don't take car loans, take car loans, buy a house, don't buy a house, rent, do all this through taxes, emergency fund, savings, 401k, Roth, personal brokerage, Robinhood, options trading. I've kind of done it all. Literally all of it. Start an e-commerce brand. I kind of left behind me. You probably, I don't know if you can see it, but I own an e-commerce company. Like I've literally done everything. I left the dashboard to my Shopify open for this week. It doesn't make a ton of money, but like we've done, I think in the last 7 days, I've done like a couple grand, it's not nothing. Like, yeah, I've literally followed everything down to I've drop shipped. I now house my own products. I've everything. All right. So I'm going to give you the reflection. We're just going to start. I'm going to go through these things and tell you what worked and what didn't. And then we'll talk about the juicy stuff. All right. Debt. Let's talk about debt first. No bad debt. Done it, worth it. I've never had bad debt. I've always paid off my credit cards every month. I've never taken out loans. I had a card loan once because I wanted to create history of a car loan in case I ever wanted a future car loan. Would I recommend doing that? Probably not. That was actually a tip from a financial creator. I made it 4 months before just paying off the car loan because I don't buy cars that are outside my means. If I'm buying a car, I can pay cash for it. So I ended up just paying it off because I didn't want the headache and the mental space was causing me anxiety. So I was like, just not worth it. So never had any bad debt, and I'm very thankful that I don't. That rule definitely works because I don't end up paying any interest on bad debt. Renting for tax purposes, that was great. That was okay. It probably would have been smarter for me to rent for my entire life. I'd have more money right now. Probably if I had rented the entire time and just invested the difference. I ended up buying a home at 23 years old, a year and a half out of college, and I'm currently living in that home. I've refinanced my mortgage, another thing that people told me to do. I went to a 20-year mortgage for a better interest rate and to shorten the time. My mortgage is like about $5,000 a month. It's forced, it's like forced savings, in building up the home equity, playing that game. I would say overall that's been good. I would have more money if I had invested that money and I was still renting, but I've been able to put a lot of sweat equity into this house. I've been upgrading the rooms. I've been upgrading the systems and the space through DIY labor because I just spent through a lot of home improvement projects and renos, but it also forced them to put a significant amount of money away into the home's value. Now, most of that is being taken by interest. I think right now to my $5,000 payment, I think that like 3,600, 3,200 goes to interest and like 1,800 goes to savings or something every month. But the thing is, not savings, goes into the equity or pays down the principal. But that's $1,800 a month that's paying down principal that I'd otherwise have to invest, which I probably would, but it takes away the psychological aspect. I'm forced to do it in a way that renting doesn't really make you think that way. I also live in Boston, so renting is expensive. That's basically all the debt. Mortgage, good. Fixes the psychology of money, makes it less stressful in general. But owning a home, very expensive. Way more expensive than you'd think. More things go wrong, so don't buy a home before you can. I have been so house poor for most of my life. I make pretty good money for my age, and I feel broke. I'm 30 years old, and I felt broke since I was 23 because I've probably spent, I think the least that I've spent in a calendar year in my house is like $20,000 on top of all the expenses. Now I'm doing a lot of home improvement, don't get me wrong, but like that would be the least I've meant to have spent. So, I mean, I've easily put 250K into this house, easily in terms of cash. Things like roof, renos, plumbing, waste lines. Actually, I haven't done the waste line yet. I'm really scared to do that. All right, I'll stop talking about the sensible stuff. So, income. Another big thing is like make more money. I did this. I sold my soul. I made more money. My income went like this. And then I realized, wow, I'm really unhappy and I'm working 80 hours a week. And then I went like this with my income. Well, yeah, I took a big step down because I was making more money, working more. I started an e-commerce brand, e-commerce business, which we'll talk about in a second. I was like, I just can't do all this. So I decided to make less money with my day job. I took a hefty pay cut to work where I am right now, and I'm happier than I've ever been, which is contrary to popular belief, but it gives me more time to work on my business, which is an e-commerce brand, which I'm kind of gonna sell or let it become automated and work on something else because e-commerce is great, but guess what they don't tell you? To grow in e-commerce, you need to have more money because you need to buy more products. And there's a lot of ad spend, and shipping is getting really expensive because gas prices keep going up. So shipping is getting expensive. Don't get me wrong, it's good money, it's okay money, it's not great, but the amount of money you make scales with how much you're willing to put into it. So let's say you make $1,000 a month, you got to put in $30,000, and then you get to $2,000 a month. And you pay back that $30,000. So don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm like taking a loss, but like I'm at like $6,000 a month right now of total revenue, $7,000. Actually, I was at last year. I was bringing in like $12,000 or $13,000 a month in total revenue through that business. But to take the next step, I would have had to put like $150,000 to $200,000 into it, which at the time I didn't really have, and it would have taken a couple years to pay off. And e-commerce is so risky that I was like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I've been scaling back and working on starting another business that isn't about leveraging cash, because selling products is about leveraging cash that you have. And if you don't have cash, it's hard to do that. Now, that sounds ridiculous. And you're like, well, e-commerce, you can drop ship and yada, yada. It works until you hit a certain amount of revenue. And after a certain amount of revenue, it's how much money you can inject into the business. I just don't want to play that game because I don't have a whole lot of money to do that. So e-commerce kind of like, yeah, it's in the middle. Savings, emergency fund. I kind of started doing that, and now I don't do that. I have enough money in a savings account that pays for that, where my mortgage comes out for like, I think 3 or 4 mortgage payments, and I keep it like that, where there's like 3 or 4 mortgage payments, and then I have another account where my bills come out of, and I usually make sure that there's like $3,000 or $4,000 in that after bills are paid every month, and then every other penny gets invested. Do I take risky investments? No. I used to take I listened to like the stock trades and all that stuff, and then I realized that it was taking a lot of time. So here's the thing. When it comes to investing, all these gurus are going to tell you, you should buy this, you should do this analysis, and you have to constantly be checking and all that stuff. And that's great, and maybe you do really well. So for perspective, I was doing all that. I was spending 30 hours a week figuring out my investing. I was day trading. I was doing all that stuff. I'm pretty good at math, right? I'd say that like it's a skill set. And I was really good at mathing the whole stock market thing, right? Like I was good at it. I returned like a 30 to 40% return pretty consistently, right? But it was like as much as a day job. I genuinely was working like 30 hours a week to do this. I didn't have enough invested for that to pay off. And it's not, you can't replicate it all the time. 1 year it is going to fail. No matter what I do and how good I am, it's going to fail sometimes. And the risk of having money there is just not worth it. So the lesson that I learned there was don't play that game. Just put it in the S&P 500 or QQQ or I just put it in ETFs. I have some things that I'm bullish on. I've got money in Nvidia, AMD, Tesla. There are companies that I want to oversaturate my net worth into, or my investment in my total investing amount in my brokerage into. So I have individual stocks like Google, Amazon, just ones that I believe out of the S&P 500 that I really like buy into, and a few non S&P 500 stocks. But then the vast majority of my portfolio, about 60%, is in, personally for me, is in VOO. It's just a low cost Vanguard ETF that follows the S&P 500. I've gotten all my time back. I went from spending 30 hours a week to maybe 20 minutes a week. And while I don't have 30 or 40% returns, I still have been getting like mid 20% returns on the portfolio spread that I have. And because of the amount of money that I've invested, that time that I'm saving, because I'm reinvesting it into my own growth and like actually making more money, has been way better than the gains. Now, if I had $10 million to invest, obviously I would spend more time investing. But because I don't have $10 million to invest, or even $1 million to invest, my time is better spent putting 30 hours a week into my job, into my business, and all those things. So big lesson learned there. That's basically it in terms of following the rules. And I kind of gave you like a kind of this worked or kind of not, but let's get into the juicy stuff, because there are some big failures here. What are the big failures? Everybody says to do side hustles, to spread your earnings, passive income. I've tried and failed and won so many different side hustles and passive income stuff and entrepreneurial things. At this point, I do self identify as an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneurship mentor at some pretty big organizations, volunteer based, but I'm pretty good at it because I've tried and failed so many different things. And I did all that because people told me to do that. But here's the problem. You begin to spread yourself thin. And the more things you do at the same time, the worse your effort is at each of those things. And the biggest lesson that I've learned is the more that I spread myself thin to be safe and to have the most chance of hitting it big is a fallacy. Those people are lying to you to sell you courses. You need to find something that works and put all your time into it, or most of your time into it. And you have to be ready to fail. Spreading yourself thin theoretically allows you to hit gold, but you can only hit gold if you're doing it better than the other person trying. And if you're doing 5 things or even 2 things, you're not going to be better than the person doing 1 thing in that specific space. You're never going to beat them. Hard work beats talent. Hard work beats luck. But if you're spread thin, you're not working hard. So that's been one of my biggest failures and something that I've really had to pull back on. It's something that I haven't really pulled back on until the last year. It really took many failures and successes. The hard part is that the vast majority of things that I put my time into were technically successes. I've got very few things that I've lost money on. I've actually been profitable and started businesses or revenue streams and most of the things that I touch because I've figured out and put the time in to figure out how to be good at it. But they're not scalable. And the time that I'm putting it into relative to my skill set as I keep doing this is not relative. I have an e-commerce brand that for most of you guys, when you think that like my brand, I put 5 hours a week into it and it generates thousands of dollars a month in profit, you're like, that's incredible. It would have been incredible when I was 23 years old. I'm now 30 years old and I'm really good at what I do. I could make significantly more than that just consulting that time out to other e-commerce brands that are struggling. Why am I not doing that? Well, I don't know. I'm asking myself that every day. I'm sitting here filming a video being like, I probably should do that. I'm literally, as I'm saying this, I'm like, gosh, I really need to make this happen. But it's like the failure of being stuck into this entrepreneurial content scheme on YouTube, which is not really a scheme, but it's just this like echo chamber of just do this, do this, do this. And it's coming from people that sell courses and do all that crap. So that's basically what I've learned. Focus your time into doing the things, the upscale, the amount that you make. All this investing BS is just follow the rules, do the things. There's a couple of videos in this channel that say like, this is how much you should put there percentage wise relative to the proportional amount that you make. Don't have bad debt, but don't do all this crap that every content creator is putting out, all these side hustles and stuff. Find one thing, try it. If it doesn't work, move on. Don't move on at the first failure of what you do. Try something, fail a couple times at it and just say, screw it. I'm just going to keep going. Wait until you're like, oh, I've burned this wood and there's no charcoal left. I've burned it till there's nothing there. Then quit, right? Don't lose a ton of money, bootstrap it. You can do most things for free. When you're starting a business or you're doing something entrepreneurial or side hustle, which I hate that I'm still leaning into this because not everyone should feel like they have to do a side hustle, but if you live in an expensive area, you kind of have to do a side hustle. God, I'm moving my hands so much. And I'm gonna leave that in the video because that's real. People fall into the trap that they have to spend money to make money. You don't. I think that in the last 10 years or 12 years, I've started legitimately multiple businesses. And we're talking like businesses, not like attempts at things, like registered businesses because they've been successful enough to register a business for. I've probably started between 30 and 45 true ventures that I brought in money on a monthly basis. Right? I probably spent outside of this e-commerce company, if you forget about the e-commerce company, because obviously, or actually including the e-commerce company, but in the first year to date, in the last 10 years, I've probably spent maybe $1,400 in total for everything that had to be done. And I would guess that I've probably returned, if you don't even count what the e-commerce companies brought out, I've probably returned it's many tens of thousands of dollars in profit. You just learn how to do it. You guys might be saying, well, you have all these skills. You can do all this stuff. That's all been accumulated by being stubborn and just saying, I'm not going to pay someone to do this. I'm just going to figure out how to do it. If you want to build an app, don't pay someone to build the app. Just go learn how to build the app. You know what comes from that? Even if you fail and your app isn't worth it, guess what you know how to do now? You can build an app, right? That's insane. You're upskilling your skills. And that right there is, if you can take away one thing from this video of what hasn't worked and what's worked, is that the most valuable thing in doing all of this, no matter what it is, you're learning about savings, you got financial advice, should I invest in my 401k? The best thing that can come from it is knowing what to do, is the skill of saying, oh, I just have the answer, right? That's what I've learned. You might not be there, right? And it takes failure, it takes watching videos like this, right? The answer is don't have bad debt, You're going to hear that and you're going to say, well, shoot. And you're going to spend the next couple of years paying off your bad debt. But at the end of it, guess what you're going to learn? Gosh, it feels good not to have bad debt. And wow, I've got so much more money and I can invest more in all these things. And guess what? You've just learned a lesson. Your cost to learn that lesson was having all the bad debt and the discomfort. Same thing goes with if you're saving or buying a house or all those things. Your cost is to do it better, right? And those are worthy investments. So video tangented a lot. I think at the very end of it, you basically heard that you need to have a side hustle to make anything really happen in this world. And unfortunately, it's either you make a whole lot of money through your day job or you have a side hustle. For most Americans, the side hustle is going to be the definer because you're not going to earn enough during your day job. Not everybody can upskill. I even feel like I'm right on that line. I'm a mechanical engineer. I've been in the workforce for 8 years. I work in consulting now. I've got a lot of real hard technical skills, and I'm basically having a hard time deciding: do I just go all in on a day job and try to make as much money as possible? Do I go into investment banking? Do I do all those things? Or do I do a side hustle? The thing is for me, a side hustle with my e-commerce company, let's say I take out $3,500 a month in profit. For me, that's not a whole lot of money for my situation. It's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I need that money that helps me pay my mortgage, but it's not like life changing. Where if somebody is working at McDonald's or something, or you have like a desk job and you make 30 bucks an hour or something, that money is real. Right? So for most people, go do that because your leverage is going to be higher in what you can return because anyone can start that. I've spent very little money out of my own pocket. I spent very little money and I've never gone into debt for starting a business. I've never taken debt ever, and I can generate lots of money. Do I have the same opportunities? Has it made as much money because I haven't taken debt? No. If I had taken debt, could I make more money or could I have leveraged more money or could I have done it faster? Sure. But then I would have had more risk of taking on debt and it could have all gone wrong. So I haven't taken debt. So I'm going to stop talking. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys in the next video.